their death experience is slightly different from one that has been, say, only around a few hundred years. The reason is, for the younger soul, death is usually a little more of a shock, which may take a short time to get used to. For the older soul, the first reaction is usually, oh great, I'm free again, I'm on my way home. So there's a little difference there between people. But it very soon happens, Emily, that the consistency of reports is so remarkable here that most of us find that while we will stay around for a short time to try to comfort the loved ones we've left behind, and by the way, this can continue to happen after souls return to the spirit world, but essentially most of them are on their way home in a hurry. A few, which we call ghosts, have unhappy experiences. Maybe they've been murdered or they have some terrible trauma that they want to stay behind and try to deal with as a spirit. But in most cases, souls are on their way home and they can't wait to get there. And what is interesting is that once a soul moves away from its body and its former surroundings, people report seeing bright lights in tunnels, the NDEs who have described what that's like, and they don't go further because if they did, they'd be dead instead of coming back to us after having been dead only for a few minutes. So we get these reports of like passing through a tunnel or a portal and seeing bright lights. And what is marvelous about this is that we don't have to stop where the NDEs stop. We can then find that a very benevolent spirit is coming towards them. Some very religious people think that this is Jesus, but they very quickly see, if they're in deep hypnosis, that in fact this being is their personal spirit guide. And this too is a great revelation, Emily. When people see their guides for the first time in deep hypnosis, they get very shaky and they're very happy, but it's a very profound moment for them.
How does the communication occur between the guide and the subject? Is it like a verbal?
Well, it's all mental. And of course, what I'm getting is a translation when I'm asking my client, okay, now would you please describe to me verbally what you're hearing in your mind? And of course, that's all they need. And these messengers greet them. And a lot of the variations here depend, again, not only on the soul you're working with, but the type of guide who's been assigned to you from the time of your creation. So guides are fascinating. Some of them have very common names. Others are very exotic. Some may appear as male or female, but for the more advanced soul, the highly advanced soul, they're more androgynous. They're genderless. They come at first as a point of light, and then they grow into as many have described, kind of like Roman candles. They're highly advanced beings. And you remember when I mentioned to you a few minutes ago, Emily, about soul groups. These are the teachers in the soul group. And some are hands-on teachers. Others are more distant. And you fall into a deep hole and you have to kind of dig yourself up. They're kind of like the teachers you had in high school. Some are very touchy-feely and others are very distant. I mean, you kind of have your own guide assigned to you based on your own character, which I find fascinating. And so it's a very empowering moment when people see their guides and when they're ushered into their spirit groups again. It's a very wonderful thing for people to know that in fact they have not lost their personhood. So often people fear death because they think that their identity, their personhood is going to be lost, when in fact it is not. And I think this is one of the great revelations of what we do. It makes people see that life is transitory, that it's part of a continuum. And, we talk about karma. Karma stretches over many, many, many lives, just not what you're doing in your current life. So there's a lot of ramifications to this psychologically, Emily, that I think are tremendously helpful to people.
I agree totally. My confusion lies with the idea of why we have this blanket of amnesia when we are reborn, because I think if we could remember and recall, we wouldn't necessarily have to keep repeating these same horrendous experiences if we could take what we learned in one life and just come back in.
Well, that's a complicated subject, and it's an excellent question. It's often asked. I remember when I was traveling around the country giving lectures, and of course the first thing that comes with the subject of amnesia is that if we knew all about our past mistakes, we might be doomed to repeat them. However, then of course the question is, okay, Dr. Newton, then how come you can do what you're doing? Well, the fact is that if we're not supposed to know something about the future, for example, it'll be blocked from us. And that includes the past, too. There may be a need for self-discovery there. And so our guides make sure that people, I'll often hear, well, I can't recall that. I'm seen to be blocked. But what is interesting is that they allow so much information to come through. And one could argue this, Emily. Our soul memories would not exist without the unconscious mind. And so each person sees what they're supposed to see, and it gives us an incentive to search more for the light of truth through the expansion of thought. I have another theory, which I'd like to run past you as well. I think that in our generation, if I could put it that way, let's not just nail it down to the 21st century, but let's say during at least the time I've been practicing, all those years, I think that the earth today is never had so many people as it has, as we deal with now. We have tremendous overpopulation problems, and part of this results in many people feeling a loss of identity. They feel like they're rats in a maze that we didn't have in earlier centuries when the earth was not so populated. That's the first thing I think of. And the second thing is the fact that drugs have never been so pervasive as they are today. Certainly in past century we had alcohol, but this whole business of heroin and meth and all of the other drugs that even you find in elementary schools is frightening, because what it does for people who want to tune out of reality because the pressures of life are so great, or they want to go on what they call a mental joyride, is that it blocks the soul from advancing. The soul can't work with a befuddled brain that has been overcome by drugs. So my feeling is philosophically that maybe the powers that be upstairs are loosening the drawstrings a little bit here, allowing the people that do our kind of work more latitude, because people of today need this. They need to find out more about who they really are in our overcrowded world. So I would say that the bonds of amnesia, perhaps, Emily, aren't quite as tight as they have been in the past. And that is a good thing, I feel.
I definitely think it's a good thing, because I think, if people understood who they are, where they come from, what they're doing, there would be a lot less of this need for basically quite a savage society that we live in, with wars and violence and crime and things. I think if people understood cause and effect better, there wouldn't be that. So, I still have an issue with the amnesia thing, because I hate to feel like I'm controlled, and I just think, well, why are you not allowing me that freedom of choice to remember?
Right. Yes, and I want to say this, Emily, we haven't talked about this, but there are many people who are capable of deep meditation, who are able to bring up information about themselves that would, for the average person, come through, say, hypnosis. I don't, naturally I'm biased in favor of hypnotherapy and hypnosis regression, but there certainly are, you think of the shamans in South America and many other cultures around the world, the Buddhists, of course, and in Asia, and the meditative practices that they have. So there's a lot of mind expansion, I think, that goes on with certain people who are capable of deep meditation. But